But hi,
Hello.
how you doing?
Good.
Good to see you.
Thanks.
I hit record immediately because sometimes with my excitement I forget to do that. So
Uh-huh.
make sure I hit it from the
Good.
go. So we are recording. I just want
Good.
you and we did one of these things, but in person. Do you remember sitting in the screening room downstairs at Louis Black's home in Austin?
Yeah. Well, back when he had a screening room.
I, I haven't been back, so I wouldn't know. But
Yeah, he lives out on Cape Cod now.
oh, okay.
He's he's moved and his
How is this?
he's gonna start a bookstore.
Come on.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I was going to ask you about his, like, if you knew about his health, because I just know that he was having intermittent issues, right, with his health. No?
Yeah, he goes to AA every morning.
Oh, good.
He lost some
I don't know if
toes
you're
and
supposed to say that, but okay.
yeah, he lost some toes and some teeth.
Oh, okay.
And
But it keeps going.
he's good now. He's
That's
good
great
now.
to hear. Oh,
He's
that's good.
really working at it, and he finally decided that living in Austin, there was just too much baggage there.
I understand.
So I think he still owns property there, but he doesn't go back.
I understand. Yeah. I don't go back either. I just can't. I know you've shot films in Texas, right?
Yeah,
But I just I don't know. I'm at a point where if I'm going to go to a particular state, and I enjoyed my trips to South by for a while there, and I would probably maybe think of going back sometime if it made sense, but I just don't want to give a dime to the government in Texas. That's where my head is at.
yeah. When we drive across the country sometimes for either book tours or surgery, we try to go across the Panhandle. and and only stop at the get your gas at the Indian reservation.
Oh
So
yeah, that's amazing.
Texas gets nothing.
That's great. So that's wise. That's really intelligent. That maybe I could figure that out then. Um, Also, I don't know if this is like a rumor or something, but and forgive me for I hope I'm not wasting your time here, but um, I work at a radio station. My job is working at a radio station, and you may know it. So I'm going to say WKZE, which used to be based in Connecticut,
Mm-hmm.
is now in the Hudson Valley in Red Hook. And you may know
Uh,
that station. I don't know. I think the general manager there says he knows your partner Maggie and that.
yeah, we used to listen to that one,
Oh,
and
good.
then the other station we listened to was the one that came out of
What's
Fordham.
okay?
Yeah,
Where were were you living south, like somewhere
we
north of
we were we were
Westchester?
on the east side of the Hudson.
Sure, sure.
Um,
That's where the station is still. Yeah.
yeah, we were in Clinton Corners,
Oh, yeah, very close. I mean,
which
relatively
is
close by.
uh, kind of not a place, but it
Yeah,
might
I
be.
know what you mean. In other words, is there even a traffic light? I don't know. Maybe not.
No, there is not. Yeah,
There isn't. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'm in a town that I don't think we have a traffic light. I live in Athens, which is directly across the river from Hudson, New York. So
Uh-huh.
quite a change from my city days. And
Yeah.
which leads me to the next thing. And we are going to get to, by the way, I promise.
Good.
I read this book,
Uh,
and when I put this up out there in the world, this conversation, admittedly it's more of a monologue at the moment, but it'll be out, it'll be available.
yeah.
So I'll get to it in a second. But you're going to be also because where we live, my partner works in at the University of Albany, and I saw
Mhm.
she noted you were going to be making an appearance there at their film festival
I am
in March.
in March. Okay, good.
Is that
Yeah, I have
news?
so yeah, yeah,
So
it may be because I have so much going on right now.
I bet.
The book tour is like 30 cities,
Fantastic.
30
That's so good to
gigs,
hear.
and so I'm not, it's actually a nice thing to see people who read books. One of my giant book, A Moment in the Sun, we went on a 40-day and 40 night driving across America up and down the West Coast and then driving back on a different way,
Hmm.
stopping at nothing but independent bookstores. And you get a very twisted idea of America. It's a nice idea, but it's not a very accurate one of what America is about.
Yeah, you kind of travel through a subculture,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
essentially, right?
Yeah, we met one guy. I didn't do a reading in the store, but he was somewhere in the Midwest, and he had to have two entrances to his store, so he could. What's the guy who used to be on Fox News who writes those The Day Kennedy Died books? Bill,
Oh, sure.
Bill,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah. Anyway,
he's
it'll come up.
he's he's
Yeah.
been somewhat erased. Anyway,
Somewhat, not enough, but
Bill
Bill
Riley.
O'Reilly. I'm glad you
Yeah,
remember. Yeah.
yeah, because
And he
he
writes
went to,
also like fiction about his sexual like whatever. I mean some
yeah.
really bizarre
Well, I hope it's
bizarre.
fiction. I hope it's fiction. Anyway, um, his books would be on in one door, and then the other one would be the liberal stuff, because people couldn't go in the same door and see both of those things. They just couldn't deal with
It
it.
would blow their mind, yeah.
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 So yeah, I went to my father went to SUNY, and mother both went to
Oh,
SUNY. And the last time, it's a long time ago, I was there. William Kennedy
yeah.
invited us.
Ironweed and
Yeah,
the
and
the
I got to
feeling.
meet him. He was a
Yeah.
very cool guy. I think he's still living.
Really?
Yeah, and so it'll be nice to be back there in March.
Yeah. Well, do you have a connection to Schenectady or what's the town?
Yeah, I went to high school in Schenectady. I grew
Okay.
up in a little town called, mostly grew up in a town called Burnt Hills, New York, which is north of Schenectady. And then went to high school in Schenectady when it was a bigger city in population.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mini Detroit in some ways once the General Electric left. And my brother still lives there and
Oh,
has done a lot of work. Kind of reviving the downtown, which was pretty derelict for a while, and he's
yes.
helped get businesses back in and reclaim some of the nice architecture and get restaurants and other things to come back there. So
That's a
it
worthy that's a worthy I don't know job or pursuit, I guess is the word.
yeah, I mean
Really worthy.
it's funny because it now has uh, the largest Guianese population outside of Guyana, among other things. But also has a lot of houses that nobody lives in, kind of like Detroit. At least in
Yeah.
Schenectady, we
Yeah.
don't burn them
Yeah.
down and leave
Yeah.
gaps in the street.
And you know, it's I remember speaking of film festivals, taking a trip. I'm from New York City, so I'm
Mhm.
not like naive by any stretch. But I remember taking a ride to Baltimore. This is like 10 years ago. So I'm not even a young guy anymore. I mean, I'm kind of like seen a lot, and but I was really maybe naively shocked by what I saw, just in terms of the city, the bones, like how
Mhm.
the blocks, block after block of blight, and I was,
One of the things that triggered me writing this book was I'd heard of Detroit, and I knew the auto industry was still, kind of struggling to survive. In 1980, I got to come and cover the Republican convention in
hmm.
Detroit at the Joe Louis Arena, and which was the first Ronald Reagan convention. And when I wasn't at the convention hall, which was interesting in itself, I got around the city a little bit, and it was in bad shape already. It was in bad enough shape that the Republicans put up at least half their delegates in Canada, in Windsor, and bust them over the bridge.
That's incredible.
And not
Yeah.
only bust them over the bridge, they put cardboard. I kept seeing these buses with cardboard in the windows so they didn't have to look at Detroit on their way to the convention center.
They drew pretty pictures on the inside of the cardboard, like
I
on the
guess,
inside facing part of the cardboard were like their
yeah,
drawings. So they
I
were like,
guess,
"This is beautiful."
yeah.
Wow.
But just kind of thinking about this vital, important American city and what had happened to it, I started thinking about, why why don't we know as much about Detroit as we know about New York and Chicago? And I started to, do a little research. It also had been in my head because of the race riot in '68.
Right.
It was so bad, and knowing some people from that area who lived through that. Um,
This is the Bell Island.
no, no, the '68 one, the
Okay. What
one
year was the Bell Island one? Because I was doing
that's
some
I
research.
think 41.
Oh,
Uh,
I conflated them then because I
yeah,
remember I was reading some history as I was reading this just for seeing what most of which was actually obviously fact.
yeah, and I had not known about that until I started writing the book.
Hmm.
So the one that I knew was the one connected with the Algiers motel incident, and was one of many cities that blew up in the late '60s. But I started thinking about Detroit as not a melting pot, but a crucible,
Hmm.
as a place like the place in America where these big forces, these big economic forces, the labor movement, obviously, and then race came together in the North. Um, and basically because of Henry Ford doing something that in its time he was known as the people's tycoon. He was a popular
Yeah.
guy. He
Yeah.
was paying people more than anybody else was for factory work, and he was paying African American people the same wages as white people, which was just unheard of at that time. And what that did is bring a lot of black people to Detroit. Um, it brought a lot of immigrants to Detroit, um, and it kind of worked for a while, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then the kind of some of it was just Henry Ford being one of the last of the tycoons who the Ford Motor Company in the time that it's written about in my book, it's not a corporation. He owns 52% of the stock, and his poor son Edsel, who he treats very badly, owns the other 48, and that's it. So when he says, "Okay, you want a union? I'll close the factory," he could do it,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
and that's a scary kind of power for somebody to have. And he kind of outlasted the robber baron, years that Teddy Roosevelt had to deal with. But when I started doing the research, and some of it was I had a couple of years before I started working on the book, I had been asked by some producers who bought an option on Gary Grandin's book Fordlandia, which is about Ford's adventure in Brazil, wanting
The
to make it into a miniseries.
It makes
And
sense. That would be yeah. Well, it's what
would have made a good miniseries, not a cheap one, but a good one. And
Yeah.
we never got it off the ground.
Mm.
But I felt like, oh, that's the last piece. That's the kind of imperialist piece of this saga, which is mostly an American saga. But there was also this little, you know, in my mind, the Brazilian adventure is kind of Henry Ford's Vietnam. He just poured money and effort into it and got nothing back
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
for a long time, for
Yeah.
many, many years.
The idea being to just again create your own rubber, uh, right, rubber tree.
Yeah, he
producing.
had his own coal mines.
Yeah,
He had his own iron ore mines. He had basically control of everything but rubber. And he was a good friend of Firestone,
right.
but they both would talk about, but what if, the Europeans own all these, rubber plantations in Southeast Asia, and they're going to jack the price up and everything. So we got to get our own.
Oh,
Uh, and that was his idea. But the River Rouge factory, literally, boats came in on a little, thing that he carved out that came from the river, the Rouge River, which was connected to the Great Lakes, bringing his iron ore and his coal.
hmm,
And they went to the smelter and they made steel and
yeah, yeah,
in a factory that was like a big line. That stuff went in one end, and something like 48 hours, Model T Fords came out the other end.
right.
And he owned
Amazing.
every piece of that.
Right.
And he was
Unheard of
it was
today.
yeah, and he was brilliant about it. He had some help. He had some good guys who were running the factory, but you know, nothing was wasted. They made their own cardboard, they made their own soybeans, they made, all this stuff was just stayed within his system. And the one thing he didn't have was this rubber. So it was a really to me, an interesting American story about a place where all these things came together. And then finally, when World War II broke out and um, they started making airplanes, which they did a very good job of eventually, and an important job of. Um, they There was no housing for all the people who came to work there because they needed so many more workers. And white people from the South and black people from the South came up to work and make those airplanes.
Hmm.
And not only did they have to work together, which was upsetting to the white people at least, they had to live together because he
Right.
had to build new housing for them.
Yeah.
And that's when things really started, the system just couldn't process it anymore.
Mm. But I could almost, I was thinking, and I did some, and also saw some recent, I guess, interviews with you that, this, it occurred to me this, the way you structure the novel with by interweaving various storylines and, subplots, which incorporate characters that are living through these experiences that you're talking about just now, and I could see it almost like some of your 80s, 90s films, let's say like Lone Star or Sunshine, where you had all these different characters kind of, and their
Mhm.
stories were and interwoven, and I could see that kind of as a like maybe that was the idea originally of going into this project, maybe that it would be um, a
Yeah,
great.
for me, it is, in some of my previous novels as well, it's an interesting way for me, the way I see the world, to write a novel, which is not to take one person's point of view and take them
Yes.
through something, but to get an idea of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Kind of, by have, one of the nice things about writing a historical novel is somebody's written the plot for you.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you do your
Right.
research and you have a timeline,
Yeah.
and then you can take your characters and say, well, who should be there on that day, and who
Hmm.
should be, and sometimes they cross paths and don't know it, and
Hmm.
sometimes they cross paths and actually talk to each other. But you know, it's a way, for instance, my movie Amigo is set during the Philippine American War. Um,
And this is
only
a film you released in about 2011 or so.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's unusual that, first of all, there were only two other American movies ever made about the Philippine American War. Ours was the first to ever have a Filipino in that movie.
Yeah.
And,
Makes
and
sense.
and and one of them, the head of the Datu, who's the head of the evil Filipino guerrillas, is played by a guy. a veteran of the Moscow Art Company. He does a very good job for a Russian of
Sure.
playing the Zatu, and I'm sure with a lot of makeup. But one of the things I said is, well, this is going to be about the people in the village that is being occupied by the Americans and about the squad that's occupying it. And for the audience, half of it's going to be in Tagalog and half in English. And some
Hmm.
of what they're going to see is because they get to read the subtitles and the American characters don't, they
Hmm.
understand more than the American characters do what's really going on here. And the same thing for the Filipinos who don't really understand English. You're giving the audience in that case a better viewpoint for this train wreck that's about to happen than usually has because they know people on both trains that are
Hmm.
about to just smash
Collide.
together.
Yeah.
So when I was planning the book, I just said, well, this is important that the black workers were partly hired and maintained the way that they were because, um, you know, Harry Bennett, Ford's Do It guy, realized, oh, they're strike insurance. Nobody else is paying black people the same as white people here. They're not going to join a union, and betray their benefactor, uh, Henry Ford, and so we'll keep a good number of them, and they'll be vital to the factory because
Hmm.
we're going to mostly put them in. At first it was the Polish people who were the newest newcomers who had to be in the foundry where you're sweating all day long and it's a little dangerous.
Going deaf.
Eventually, it was mostly African American.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a way that I like to tell stories, and I've done it in movies and in books.
Mm, yeah, no, I'm ashamed, not ashamed. I wish I could say, I guess is the better way to put it, that I had read other of your books, but I know I will be reading more of them. I mean,
Mm.
you're pretty good. I'm no, I mean, you're a great writer. I mean, it's almost as though, how do you accomplish being a filmmaker and being such a,
You
I
know,
think,
you
prolific author, a lot of
I'm
reading.
getting more prolific because
Yeah, it's harder to make the
you
films.
know,
Yeah,
it's hard to get the funding for the
yeah,
films.
yeah, yeah. I
You know,
understand.
I had written a couple novels before I started making movies.
I
I
know.
got my
Yeah.
first novel published in 1975. So I was
Wow.
pretty
Yeah.
young when I got my
50
first
years.
novel published.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and then I started getting to make movies, and so there became gaps where I might have the idea for a book and have written 3 or 4 chapters, but then I got busy not only making the movies but doing the publicity for the movies or whatever, and
Sure.
being a screenwriter. And so in the last couple of years, when I haven't been able to raise money to make movies, it's just like, oh, well, why don't I write a book? And in some cases, not in this case, but in some cases, it's, oh, I've already written the screenplay. I've already done, 80% of the research.
Wow. Yeah.
I can take my last book, the one about the Carlisle Indian School, um, to save the man. I had written a screenplay, and we tried for years to get it off the ground as a movie. But then when I made it into a novel, I was able to expand it.
Hmm.
And so in the screenplay, just for knowing how much it would cost, we don't actually go to the Wounded Knee Massacre. In the book, I'm able to do that.
Hmm.
Same thing with the Moment in the Sun, which ended up being a 1,000-page book, was a screenplay that
Gee
was
whiz.
too
Yeah.
expensive for us to be able to raise the money to get made, and I adapted it into a novel. Um,
Or
so
several
yeah,
novels. Just
so
in
it's
one.
just it's storytelling.
Yeah.
There aren't too many novelists who get to make Neil Jordan, the Irish guy. He's a good he's a good novel writer. Uh,
He just released a memoir, Amnesiac, right? Which
yeah, yeah,
I actually, coincidentally, that you brought him up. It's funny because I did just have him also on this. It was quite a treat, you know.
yeah, yeah.
I'll
You should
send you the
publish.
link to it. I don't know if you'll
Oh,
want
cool,
to,
cool.
but you know,
The
there's any.
the other guy I can think of who regularly both wrote novels and was the guy who wrote James Clavell, who wrote Shogun and
Sure,
Taipan, those
sure.
big things.
Yeah, back in the
He directed
60s,
King
70s.
Rat. He directed To Serve with Love. He was
I didn't know
a
that. Oh,
working director.
go
But
figure.
more often it's somebody like Norman Mailer who got to make a few movies but was
Right,
really a novelist, or
right.
I think Oliver Stone has written one novel and gotten it published, and it's more like somebody has the time and they try novel making or filmmaking. Um, but to me, it's just storytelling. They are very different in some ways, and in some ways, you use the same muscles.
Sure. But you know, I guess as a screenwriter, you write in solitude, but it's much more condensed amount of time. When you're writing the novel like this one, or what is it called the place, not a place in the sun, obviously. What was
A
the
moment
novel?
in the sun. A moment in the
A
sun.
Moment in the Sun. Thank you. Um,
Yeah.
these are you're spending a lot of time alone, right? Doing that very solitary
Yeah,
pursuit, as opposed much less social than working on the set.
yeah, it's not just the social part, it's you're not collaborating. So
Yeah,
when I write a screenplay that I know I'm going to get to make, or usually that's because we're financing it ourselves. Um, I, I know the art department is going to do half of my research for me. I don't have to describe everything. I have to just describe. There's a great line. I think it's in a short story of Raymond Chandler's, and the line is. He gave me a drink of warm gin in a dirty glass.
hmm,
Now, from that sentence, you can see the whole office that you're in,
yeah,
and,
that's
and
right.
it's
Yeah,
kind of shabby. When I write a screenplay, I try to do that kind of thing with a description. When you're writing a novel, you don't have an art department. You don't have a composer to do music. You don't, have a cinematographer. You got to do all that stuff yourself. And on the other hand, when you write a novel, it doesn't matter if the sun is shining or not. If you want the sun to shine, you say, the
yeah,
sun is shining and it's shining, all
yeah.
day long if you want it. Whereas when you're making a movie, you're always kind of, oh God, when's that cloud going to move? And we'll be in continuity again.
Right. Do you feel on some level that, like in a novel like this one, again, Crucible, and it's being published by, uh, I know the name,
Melvin.
Melville Press, which is and distributed by Penguin Random House. But do you get the sense that you are collaborating, getting a little esoteric, I guess, but do you feel like you're collaborating with these real life characters? Like you have to
Ones that,
honor them, whether they're unpleasant or really
yeah,
heroes. Um,
yeah. I think you try to know as much as you can about them. You try to get into their heads. This is the real characters.
mhm.
You try to be true to their character. Uh, Harry Bennett wrote a very self-serving but very lively autobiography.
Did
You
he?
read something like that. Um, you read what Ford had his people write about him, and that he called autobiography. Um, you try to do that, but also the composite characters are the ones that you make up. You try to find people like that.
Hmm.
Letters home from soldiers have been really valuable to me. People's diaries, that sometimes somebody goes off to the Spanish-American War and they die of yellow fever, before they can get back. But
Yeah.
they had a diary, and their family decides to publish the diary, and sometimes just accidentally stumble on that, or else you do enough digging to find it.
Yeah.
And so people tend to be a little less uh, they're a little more honest in their diaries.
Hmm.
Their letters home, they're trying to sometimes impress somebody
Placate.
or
uh,
placate somebody. I'm not
Placate.
in real danger here. Um, but you try to get all that information about them, and then when you put them in the situation, you have an idea of what sometimes it's in a meeting. In my book, Jamie McGillivray, which starts at the Battle of Culloden and ends at the Battle of Quebec. Um, I have the minutes, the verbatim trial of some of the Jacobites who fought against the for the Scots against
Hmm.
the English. And you take the best of that and you don't mess with it. You edit it only a little bit because the language is so great. And you
Have,
realize, oh my God, these poor guys, they're going to get hanged,
hmm.
and their lawyer spends 80% of his time, you know, kissing up to the king because he wants to stay in business and get hanged as
Yes.
well, you know. So sometimes the story is kind of already written for you, and you're just finding it and shaping it a little bit. And then other times you're saying, okay, what could happen? What if they had kids? And the kids aren't just props. What would happen
Hmm.
to their kids? This is a book that starts in 1927 and ends in 1942. The kids
Hmm.
are going to grow up, so we're going to see or hear about them at different points, and if one of them's of age, he's going to get drafted or enlist in World War II.
How far back do you think you could go, if you were to bring up another historical novel? How far back do you think you could go till you just run out of solid amount of available text, and
Yeah,
resources?
I
Like,
think if you're not going to lean on the few texts that are there. So I think Nora Mailer wrote a book called Ancient Days, which I haven't read, but I think
oh
it
yeah,
goes
I
back
remember
to
it. It was a bestseller,
Greek
sure,
and Roman days or whatever. People have written a lot of books set during the time of Jesus Christ.
sure,
But they're leaning heavily on the writing there has been. Once you start getting back,
and
then
supposition. Yeah,
you're guessing a lot more.
right. Yeah. Does that
So
appeal to you, or do you just feel like it's really much more your wheelhouse to go where the information is much more,
I think it's
available?
for me, it's more interesting I'm somebody who writes historical novels who I got to go to college and I never took a history course.
Oh yeah.
But the story part of it always interested me. And so I kind of like the fact that when I start doing this research, there's so much I don't know. And very often a light comes on, oh, that's a great deed. Oh, wow, geez, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Um, and it can be very, I have this rule when I'm working on these things, which is I can do 1 week of research and then I have to sit down and write some fiction
Hmm.
because otherwise you just get sucked into that,
Down the
very,
rabbit hole.
yeah, yeah, and you may never come out.
Right.
So I'm always leaving little question marks, and it may be, oh, what kind of rifles were they carrying during the Philippine American War? Oh, it was a Krag, and it wasn't a Mauser yet, and it had smokeless powder, and everybody said the mechanism of the bolt was like butter, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
made in Sweden or something like that. And then 10 years later, it's a different rifle, and it actually affects the characters who are soldiers in a different way.
I learned
But
so
that may
much.
be a hole for a while until I get into that specific, hunt for information details.
Yeah. I mean, I just learned so much because I knew things about Ford, Henry Ford, we're talking,
Mhm.
but I didn't know. I didn't even know. I knew about the Etzel vehicle, which was sometime later, even after
Yeah,
Etzel had died. It came out right with Etzel's son Henry Ford Jr. or the
yeah,
second, what have you. He
yeah,
in honoring his father, um, right, produced the Etzel. But I mean, there were a lot of things I just didn't know, which was such a gift. As I also just love history, so uh, uh, you know, and yeah, it's just it's a terrific terrific read and requires you to really kind of focus when you're reading it too. It's not for
Yeah,
it really,
you know,
because you're jumping into all these stories and they've already started in a lot of ways.
one of the main differences for me in a screenplay and a book is it may not be the way people watch movies anymore, but I still write a screenplay to be a thing that people sit down and they watch all the way through.
Yeah, right. Hmm.
Obviously, nobody, I hope, is going to sit down and read my 1,000-page book
Right.
in one sitting, And so what you're saying is, okay, I'm asking a lot of the reader, which is you got to keep track of this stuff. So you have to be careful with how you name people, so their names are very different and
Hmm.
and jump out at
Interesting.
you, especially the ones who weren't famous people. You do have to. When I made Eight Men Out, I realized I've got a bunch of white guys with short haircuts playing baseball when
Yes.
when there weren't even numbers on their back, much less names. So early on in the movie, I introduce each character 3 times. So
Right.
people,
Smart.
even if you don't know the difference between John Cusack and Charlie Sheen, you say, "Oh, that guy."
Hmm.
He's the first
Hmm.
baseman, or he's the left fielder, or whatever. So you have to do some of that thinking for the audience's sake when they're reading a big book. Of they may need a little hint as to, "Oh, that's right, that thing already happened," or "That's who this guy is."
Mm. But it's helpful to choose to read the book when you do have chunks of, like in a over a
Yeah,
condensed period of time.
yeah,
um it'll be beneficial. That's all. Whether it's a
yeah,
vacation or just a time when you're maybe in the winter when it's cold out, like, and you're spending much more time on the couch with
yeah.
near the wood burning stove, and you read the
Yeah,
book.
I read, I had never read it before, Hard Times by Dickens,
Yeah.
recently. And
Oh,
no, it was serialized. So
yeah,
you
right,
had to wait
exactly.
a week,
Yeah.
but even then he kind of says, "Oh,
Yeah.
and remember this guy? We're gonna follow him for a while,
Yeah.
dear reader."
Yeah, you pick up the techniques. That's part of your job. That's
Yeah.
makes sense, right? So I have a question now for you. We're going to wind it down, respecting your time, and I know you probably have plans or things to do tonight. But um, again, if you're in the anywhere in the what we call the Capital District of New York, and John will be at the University of Albany, and so will I. I'm going to come. I'm going to come to that.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, I really look forward to that, and that'll be on March 15th. I wrote it down, so I don't have more specifics yet, but it's not hard to find these things. If you
Mhm.
could do all that research for this book, people can look up, what time,
Yes.
what time and
What
which
time of
building
day?
you'll
Yeah.
be in on the campus there. But so I mentioned at the beginning that I work at this radio station, WKZ. It's a music station, but what interesting, the owner, he asked me to produce a radio play s- speaking of Dickens, funny enough, of A Christmas Carol. The one
Mhm.
Jewish fella that works at the station, he asked.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but I played Scrooge, and I
yeah.
got a number of people from the staff, and then I asked a few outside actor friends to come in, and we did a radio play of Orson
Mhm.
Welles' version of a
Yeah,
famous thing. You probably heard it or know about it.
yeah.
And so I've been tasked now because it was such a success, just because of everybody did such a good job. But I was then they want me to do another soon. And here's the thing: so maybe the topic for the next one is something that it goes right to your heart, and that is labor.
Mhm.
So this book also deals a lot with unionizing, and we touched on that a drop, but it's a big part of the book actually. And then I was thinking a radio play dealing with that we could do. I guess it should be public domain, ideally, or something.
Mhm.
But anyway, I don't know. Do you know of any? Like, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. I was thinking maybe.
You might want to read Clifford Odets's Waiting for Lefty.
Well, yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that
It's
could work?
done. It's
Maybe.
probably better in a theater because at the end they ask the people, in the seats to come march with them,
Well,
that was,
it'd have to be condensed anyway because we're
yeah,
not going to do anything that's that like 45, 55, somewhere in there. I mean,
yeah.
I was also
Uh,
thinking, your friend Studs Terkel wrote that oral history working,
right.
and that's been uh that
Yeah,
was
it's
televised and
there.
it made
Those are good. Those are good oral stories. They're not dramatic because they're not people talking
to each
with each
other.
other.
Right.
The British have written, I think, some more uh,
Hmm.
of those kind of just working plays. Slab Boys is one I know.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'd
They're
have
going to
to.
have to do more research.
Yeah,
Like it's seems to still hold a certain amount of fascination or what have you. Some for people the audio of course is huge again.
yeah.
So I get with podcasts like this one. So it makes sense. A radio play might actually be an interesting idea to do at this point in time.
They used to in the 30s and 40s regularly. There would be a hit movie, and they'd sometimes get the same actors to do a radio play of it. So it might be something like film noir or
Yeah,
whatever. You would hear the
which makes
same
it,
voice.
and those with the rapid dialogue and yeah,
Yeah,
the drama that the heightened sense of
tiny
drama.
bit of music,
And there's
and
usually some thrills because it's usually there's some level of duplicity or violence it makes
gunshot.
sense
Yeah.
that it would lend
Studs
itself.
Terkel, you mentioned Studs had been a radio play actor, and so when I
I
worked with him,
yeah,
the first scene that he was in, his character, had a cigar, and Studs was comfortable smoking cigars, and he would say his line, and
yes,
he'd freeze, and I'd say, Studs, the rest of us keep acting. I know it's your last line in the scene, but you can't freeze. Oh yeah, John, I'm used to doing radio plays where nobody was looking at you, and you just stayed in character until it was your turn again, and you didn't have to remember the lines because they were written down in front of you. So it
right.
was a
Oh, I see.
totally
Yeah.
different acting experience. But
Again, ADR.
I like radio plays are once you get into them, uh, they can be really good.
Yeah,
They have,
there is my friend Larry Fessenden who also directs horror films and loves remaking old like Boris Karl, like an old Boris Karloff or Lon Chaney type of
uh,
redoes some of those Universal horror films like but updates them, and he also does radio plays which actually have done he gotten and a number of times he would they I forget the name of it now. It's got he's done a series of them, and they were been done on the stage at Lincoln Center.
oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to, and they do what's the sound, folks? What's the name of the sound? Do you remember? I wasn't expecting to talk about this so much, but there's the whole
Uh,
company that does the sound or a whole type of sound that is done
uh,
for radio plays. Anyway, um, I forget why I brought this all up all this, yeah, I look forward to doing them, and I'm just I think that you got to find the right topic where there's stuff out there, but that's some interesting ideas to look into. I appreciate your help with that. Um, well, that's it. I'm sure I'm forgetting some stuff, but I really appreciate you giving me so much time, and I hope people pick up Crucible again, Melville
mhm,
Press. It'll be out. It's out January 20th,
right.
wherever
Right.
books are sold.
And I'm gonna be doing a book tour starting on the West Coast. I don't have the dates right in front of me, but I'm gonna do one at Oblong Books.
Oh,
Uh,
well, that's in Rhinebeck and in Millerton.
yeah,
They
yeah,
are. Oh, so you're going to be there too.
yeah, yeah.
Well, that's even
It's a
closer.
wonderful bookstore.
Which
When
do you
we
know
get
which one you're
down,
going to be at, or
I'm going to
the
be at the
mag?
Schenectady Armory at some point.
Do you know which
Uh,
oblong though? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Which one?
and which oblong am I going to be at? I'm going to be in
I can find it.
Saratoga. Oh, it's going to be in this little venue in Rhine Cliff, actually,
Oh, in
uh,
Rhinecliff.
where
Okay.
there's more room.
They have a
And
library there, and I'm just trying to think where else it would be.
yeah,
No parking. Hi, are you Maggie?
Hello. Hi.
yes,
Yes, I am.
Nice
Yes,
to
there
meet
is
you.
no parking. You're right. But
Yeah,
it's
no,
a
it's been.
cool old place. And so
Is
we're
that
going
the
to
library
be,
there?
yes, at the
Yeah, yeah,
Morton Library in Rhine Cliff.
yeah. I've
That's
been there.
Oblong sponsored on the 19th.
of February.
Well,
Actually, you're in the North Adams area. So it's North Adams Library.
no, no, no. I'm not. I'm in.
Oh, are you?
He's
I
in Red Hook.
I'm in the Hudson Valley. You know, I'm very close. I work in Red Hook, which is just down the road from Rhinecliff, but I live near
Didn't we
Catskill, New
used
York.
to, did we not used to get, it's AMC.
No, it's
No, no,
WC.
WKZE,
Oh,
the
KZE,
music
sorry.
station.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So North
That's okay.
Adams on the 18th, Oblong and Rhinebeck on the 19th, and then North Shire and
21st.
Saratoga on the 20th.
Oh,
Mhm.
great. Okay. And then I'm coming to Albany,
And
so I may see you if it works out.
great. And
Maybe,
then Schenectady the 21st.
Yeah, the
yeah.
Schenectady Armory on the 21st.
Yeah, which I need to get
And
to
then in March,
In
Albany, the
March.
university. Right.
on the 28th.
Yeah, yeah.
What's on the 28th? That would.
Something,
Sorry.
something, I'm sorry, I have March 28th Albany, which is something to do with the William Kennedy Writers Institute.
Okay.
Do you know what that is, John? I
Doesn't
don't
matter.
even actually know the
It'll all
details, but
come to light. We'll figure it all out. It's great.
Yes,
more will be
it will
revealed.
catch up
Nice
to
to
me.
meet you.
Yeah.
Same here, Maggie. Very nice to meet you finally. And um, yeah, that's it. I remember I was going to mention Catskill, the town, which is down the road here, because they're downtown, much smaller than a Schenectady, but it's
Mhm.
been revitalized completely. There's even the movie theater has come back there.
Oh, that's great.
The community theater in Catskill. Yeah, so there's hope for some hope. You know, got to make more hope. So do our
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
So good. Get on the road, and I'm sure be running into you.
Okay.
All
We'll
right.
see you there.
Thank you. Have
Yeah.
a good
Bye
night.
now.
Take care.